Rock Painting 101. We're trying a slightly different angle today so that I can try to read comments a little bit better so I don't miss questions while they're being presented. This week's prompt for 52 Rocks is fish. So we're doing some fun fish. This video will be a little bit longer only because there's a few different techniques that I need to be able to show today. We'll put our little fishies over here off to the side. But I did, a little magic, so we'll do a background and then we'll switch over to this one so it doesn't get too long. So as you're joining in, say hi. You can hit one of the little wavy hands. Hi, Nancy. Hi, Kia. So I'm going to go ahead and start with my backdrop. For this, you can definitely use acrylic paints. I use my Posca pens a lot because they dry really fast and they're really convenient for me in videos to use. But we're just going to do some basic blending. So you're going to need a brush and sometimes a little bit of water. I don't like to use a lot of water with this, just enough to kind of moisten the brush and have some water in case you need to rinse out your brush. So I just kind of put some on a paper towel here. Hi, Linda. So we're just going to go from light to dark, just like it would be in the ocean. So I'm just going to put a little bit of white along the top of my rock here, like so. And we're just going to kind of base out some of the colors first, then we'll start adding more and blending together. Hi, Gloria. Like so, the deep dark bottom of the ocean blue. And we'll do some light blue, and I also like to add a little bit of green in there. Ocean, like the clear ocean, always has that little bit of green tint to it. So we'll get that on there too. Hi, Amy. Hi, Molly. Here we go. So we're going to add that. And it's okay if you get a little bit of a different color on the tip of your pen. It's not going to hurt anything. I just like to get a little bit of green in along each of the little areas here. Now I'm working directly on a rock. If your rock is base coated, the paint will stay a little bit more fluid if you're using paint pens. If you're doing it right on the rock, sometimes, depending on the style of rock, it will absorb a little bit. And as you can see there, I just kind of doodled off the tip of my pen to get any of the extra blue. I'm not going to do it too much because I might go in and use some more. So you can see that mine's drying pretty fast because I'm going right on the rock. If you have a base coat, it won't dry quite as fast. So I always go with a dry brush first and see if I can get it blending. The less water you need, you always want to use the least amount of water possible. But as you can see, we kind of dried up a little bit. So this is where I come in, just get a little bit of water off my damp paper towel, and I press very lightly because you don't want to pull up the paint. You just kind of want them to blend together. And once you get this first layer of water on here, put a little bit more down, you can add your pens right on top and they'll kind of blend together a little bit too. So we're going to go back and forth a few times here between our paint pens and our brush just to kind of get this water blending together here. And once you get a little bit more liquid on the rock, since I'm right on the base plain rock, it is going to soak a little bit of that in. So see, we can go right back in here, a little bit more of our blue, and just blend that right in. We'll get the bottom kind of where we want it. And see that second coat, how much darker that is already. So you just want a very light touch with your blending brush because you don't want to pull a bunch of paint back up off the rock. If you press too hard, you'll find you're taking too much paint away. If you end up getting your rock a little bit too saturated, give it a second, let it dry, and then go back to it. Because if you're just pushing the paint around and it's kind of wiping back off the rock too much, that's probably what's happened. Because you've just gotten it a little bit too damp. Just let it dry for a second. So you just work back and forth with your colors until you kind of like the look of where you're at with your fading. So I've got that like that. And I'd probably go back and maybe do a little bit darker just to get my edges and blend a little bit more here into this white, because I don't like the super harsh white at the top. You only get a little bit of white caps. So we'll pull that and see what I mean. See how that pulled away? My brush was probably just a little bit too damp between the water and the paint pens. So see how it kind of pulls it back up, and I'll even do it even harder so you can see. See how that pulls it up? Just like that. So you can go right back in and add a little bit more paint. Yes, Christine, this is exactly how it would work if you're using paints. You just start with your darker color and you add your lighter colors and then slowly kind of work them together using a light brush touch. I have my pens out there. My kids are still in summer break, so I hop up here and hope that they are good the whole time, but this definitely expedites my process because it's fast. They clean up really fast. I am gonna rinse off my brush back here, and all I have to do is put the caps on when I'm done with my video with you all, and I'm cleaned up and ready to go back into the trenches. So I have this rock that's already dry and ready to go. This one is actually dry already, but when you're painting a next layer on top, I like to let them dry just a little bit longer because I'm gonna be going in with completely opposite colors. So I don't wanna pull up any of that paint below. I'm gonna use a rock to kind of prop this one up a little bit when I'm working to make it easier, and I'll back up a little bit, try to stay away from the comments there so you can see what I'm doing. Now we're gonna make a little fish in the water, and my fish is nothing super spectacular. It's funny because when I was doing this video, I think I was most excited to show y'all like how to do little bubbles with your fish because I think it just makes them come alive. So I do a very basic fish shape. So you will see there's nothing super crazy. We will do a little bit of blending in it just to make it a little bit fun. Hi, Raven. So we're gonna just do almost, I like to say like an eye shape to do the body, just like so. And the same shape you would make if you were doing an eye. And then I just go ahead and create where my fins are gonna go. I'm gonna add some other colors to them. So I almost like a backward C like that. And then I like my little fin on the top and a little fin on the bottom. And then we're gonna add some thickness to those and some other colors to those as we move along. Now I have my fish fading from pink to kind of a yellow tone. So we're just gonna fill in the top half here with the pink. And then we're gonna come right back in with our orangish color. And we're going to add the bottom half. And it's okay if you pull that pink, we're gonna blend them together anyways. So I'm just gonna go right along the bottom there. I kind of like leaving just a littlest bit of the darker color underneath to kind of define that line, and we're gonna nub up right there. And we're gonna do the same thing as far as blending here. So I'm just gonna take a brush and very, very carefully, and I'm gonna do this. See, now I have a base coat on this rock, and see how it's still showing, it's still shiny. So it's still a little wet, so I don't need to wet my brush at all. And I seriously, the very, very, very tips, just the very tips, gonna go along here and just kind of wiggle back and forth a little bit, just to kind of pull that paint back and forth to create kind of a cool effect for the fish. And you can even see some of the bristle lines in this, which is fine with me because I think it kind of looks cool. And see, a little bit of that blue is showing through, so we'll probably have to add a little bit more pink when we're all done. Now, as far as doing the fins, all I did with those is added a couple dots of some of the yellow here, and using that same brush, I kind of just pulled them to create more of that fin look. So just a couple dots of paints. Just gonna really pull them, kind of give that fin effect. It's harder when it's a little further away. I'm holding kind of far away from my body right now so that you all can see what I'm doing. I'm gonna go back in and add a little bit pink here too. There we go. And we're gonna do the same thing with the upper fin here. Just pull those colors in just a little bit. There we go. Like so. And you've got your basic fish shape there now. And you can go in, and I also keep, and it's funny, these are always on my table, and I don't know if I've ever used them in a video before. I will use them in this one. I keep toothpicks. So like if you want to really get in there and move some paint, you can get in there with a toothpick, because sometimes with the bristles, you've got too many bristles and you're gonna end up going over your edges. So you can use a little toothpick to move paint around sometimes too. Just be careful because you can actually scrape off your paint as well. So you gotta use light hand. So I'm gonna do one more layer on the fish once it's dry, and then we'll add you know, an eye and a mouth and some gills to it. While we're working on that, we're going to start doing some of our bubbles, because I think that that's kind of one of the funnest parts about this whole tutorial is the bubbles. The seaweed's pretty last minute. If you're joining in late, so this is going to be a little bit longer tutorial than I normally do, but we've got quite a few little mini techniques in one video here. So for doing your bubbles, start by just putting in your basic bubble shapes, your circles. You can have them starting at your fish's mouth, and you can kind of alternate sizes because sometimes they float away fast, sometimes they float away slow. So you can do, you know, a few big bubbles, you can have a couple little bubbles. I'm going to have a few on here because I want to show the different sizes. So just your basic shape of your bubble first. Then you're going to take a lighter color and help define the edge of it. And this also breaks so that your highlight sticks out more. So usually the light's coming from the surface when, you know, a fish is underwater. So I like to put my highlight along the top. So I'm just going to go just inside this white edge. Oh, my pen's not going. There we go. Just inside the edge, and add just a little light blue dollop like that. And then we're going to do the exact same thing, just with a darker color on the bottom side of the bubble. Like so. Let me get a little dab in that tiny, teeny, tiny one. Now, this is where I have my toothpicks here. You can take a toothpick and kind of pull your color. Just a little bit. And I even scratch into it just a little bit. Like so. The last thing you need to do is add your highlight to your bubble, and that's what really makes it pop. So you go just inside that lighter color and create your highlight. So I'll pull it in, let it focus here. And that one's still a little wet, so I'm just gonna go to the next one. We'll go to that one last and just add tiniest little highlight and sometimes a little dot, like so. It really helps it come to life. And it's okay if you could cover that light color just a little bit, but you just want that little bit of light blue in between your white lines. So we're gonna go just like that. And this guy down here is pretty tiny. I don't know that I can really get a highlight in that one. We'll just add a little dab. Just like that. And the more you do bubbles, I mean, I haven't been doing bubbles for a really long time. I know you can get in there with more colors and things like that, but under the water, I don't know if they would really have all those purples and pinks like they do when you're blowing bubbles out on your sidewalk. So that's just a basic bubble though, and for beginners, I think it's a great place to start with. And it really makes that fish come to life. So I'm gonna do my seaweed first, and then I'll go back in and finish my fish, because that way y'all can see the whole process. If you want to stick around while I finish up my fish, you can too. So for the seaweed, I'm just taking a lighter green, and you can kind of use it to fill in the empty space on your rock. So I just start at the top and kind of wave down, you know, a couple here and there. I like to have one sneak behind the fish here. And kind of go up high. You can have them sneak in front of the fish if you want to have one go in front of the fish like he just swam through it. Just use a light hand when you're going over something you've already painted so you don't pull that paint up because it hasn't dried that long. I feel like this needs to wave back this way. There we go. We'll let that first layer dry. We'll go back over that one more time, and then we can add some darker green just to give it a little bit more depth. But just that simple, it gives it more of a scene, gives it more movement, the little waves of the seaweed. So we'll let that dry. We'll go in our fish here and give them a little bit more color. I can see a little bit of blue peeking through here. I don't like that blue showing through. I'm gonna add a little bit like that. We'll use our toothpick to pull it. I don't have extra fine tips in these colors. These are they call them natural colors. I think they look like pastels. They do make them in extra fine tip. I just don't have them. So these are a little bit thicker for those tiny spots. So I'm just gonna dab in some color here. Where'd my brush go? There we go. And very lightly again, we don't want to actually pick up the paint. Just moving it a little bit. There, once that dries, I think that will look a lot better. Where is my peach for the bottom half? There we go. Just like that. You can blend it back and forth as many times as you want. The more layers of color you get on here, obviously, the less opaque it will be. I won't make you sit and watch me do it a bunch of times. Joy, this brush is actually dry. If you're working on a bare rock, sometimes you'll have to use a little bit of water because the rock will start to absorb your paint. But since I'm working on top of paint here, I don't put water on my brush unless it's not moving for me. Just because if you get water on there, you might end up picking up too much of the paint. All right, so we're just about done here. We're gonna take an extra fine and go on the one side. You can pick either side of your seaweed to go down. I just like the extra little bit of color. Like so, one more. There we go. And we need to give him an eye. Put my black here. Make sure it's my new one, not my old one. It is my old one. My old one, the tip is, I finally got myself a new black pen. My tip is nice and pointy. I almost forgot how pointy they could be. So we're gonna add in a little eye here. And I looked it up and most eyes, fish eyes are black. I didn't want to do a black outline on this one. As far as doing the mouth on this one and the gills, all I did was used my toothpick and I add my paint on here for my gills. And they don't show up a lot, but I guess on a real fish you don't see them that well either. Whoop. And while the paint's wet, I really kind of scratched into it and I kind of pulled some of the blue. See how I can almost remove the paint? Like that. I actually got more paint off on that one than I did on the first one. I kind of like that better. Same with the mouth. You can kind of pull a mouth line across like that. And just to give just a little spot there that's a mouth. See where his bubbles are coming out. And we're gonna call that good. So thanks for sticking around, everybody that was here during that whole video. It was a little bit longer than I normally do, but like I said, I wanted to show the different techniques and things in there. I just got blue paint all over myself. I was working on a different project and you know, that's what happens. But we're gonna move these over here. I guess I can't lay them down because of this angle. So let me know too if that angle worked a little bit better. I'll put him right up on top. But here's all our fishies ready to get sealed and hidden. I did see somebody ask about sealing. I use spray Krylon. They have the clear coat. I use that one the most just because I seal a lot of rocks at a time. I wait until I have a whole bunch. I lay them all out. I did do a live when I was doing them before. The main thing, especially when you're using paint pens or really any medium, I always do a really light coat first, and I'm at least 8 inches away, and you don't want them ever dripping wet when you're spraying them. So I do super light coat, misting across all of them. You can tell that it's hitting the rocks because if you work with rocks that don't have a base coat, like they'll turn a bit darker, so you'll know they're getting hit. So after that layer is dried, I usually try to come in and do another kind of lighter coat, but kind of go in circles. I promise I will have a rock sealing post videos. I bought a couple kinds I don't use all the time so that I can test them out and share with you as well. So thanks everybody for coming in. Have a wonderful day and hope you give these little fishies a try. And of course, as always, come back and share them if you do. Bye.